I think I made a blog a few months ago about, struggling to do a PhD during the pandemic. And now it's been 2 months, and I'm finally having my confirmation of candidature. So in RMIT, I'm not sure about other universities, but for RMIT in the School of Design, we have a symposium which is called a practice research symposium. So it's just called PRS, and that's when like all the PhD examinations, all the milestone presentations, such as the confirmation of candidature, are presented. So well, this year it's all online, but doesn't mean I can't dress up. Let me just flip my camera to show you. Also, since since it's all online, I am doing it in my bedroom, and like it's 9, it's almost 10 o'clock. My presentation is at 11:30, and I woke up like really early, like around 6. I just woke up and I couldn't go back to sleep, and then I saw the sunrise and it was pretty. And I've just been sitting around listening to some praise and worship songs to like calm me down. And like, oh, I just want to see yeah, because it's at home, so I have like purple socks on. I do have shoes that matches with the outfit because I went on a little retail therapy. So I got like this blazer, this shorts. This shorts was only like $10. And I got like shoes as well, but I'm not gonna wear it because I'm at home for like $40 because I love a bargain. And that's where I'm gonna do my presentation later. I have my laptop set up. It's quite sunny, so I'm still like deciding if I will like keep the blinds on or not. Yeah, and I have a little like octopus over there. And but yeah, I'm like super excited, super nervous. Like I've gone through my presentation slides like 3 or 4 times, and I had like 2 practice sessions with my supervisor. And let me just show you. And I'm hoping to get the presentation like recorded. Let me flip my camera. I was just listening to some songs, and yeah, let's just gonna do a quick flip through of my slides. Hopefully I'm gonna get these on my presentation recorded and probably post it on my blog as well. Yeah, just a lot of stuff. It's like 1 year's worth of my PhD. And yeah, we the practice research symposium. So it's like we have like a website, and like people can come. And so this is mine. So that's my topic, and like my abstract. And like as you can see there, it says like, yeah, milestone 1 abstract, and later people can join the session. And it's just on Microsoft Teams, which is like, it's good. Like for one thing, I'm presenting in my bedroom, and like I can literally roll out from bed to a presentation if I choose to. And it's weird times, but we try to do it. And I have all all sorts of links open so I could show them the panel. Like that's my website, some of my blog posts from before, and also this is like some of the games I've made, and Instagram. And yeah, I'm literally really looking forward to it, and I'll check in later. Welcome everyone to my confirmation of candidature presentation. I'm Michelle, and my topic is called Mental Jam, the knowledge translation of lived experiences of depression and anxiety through video games co-creation. The structure of my presentation would be the project description, the research context, and I'll cover a bit about related literature. And I will talk about my research approach, my research progress and schedule, as well as some requested guidance and feedback, and also a checklist of my compulsory requirements and references. So my is called Mental Jam. So it's a research project that explores the knowledge translation of young people's lived experiences of depression and anxiety through video games co-creation. So knowledge translation is a term that's used to describe how knowledge is disseminated, exchanged, and applied from a range of participants and perspectives. Prior research in this area has shown that different artistic mediums can be used to portray stories as a form of self-expression and to raise community awareness. Video games offer an interactive and immersive experience because it can inspire players to gain knowledge of the lived experience of others. However, facilitating the participation of individuals with lived experience in the co-creation of video games is not well understood. So through a participatory action methodology, I will develop a program of game jam workshops that will facilitate the co-creation of video games with participants with lived experience of depression and anxiety using a diverse video game design approaches, such as narrative-driven, metaphorical, and experiential game design. And this research will contribute to the knowledge to the field of art-based knowledge translation, as well as expand game design perspectives for empathy games. So mental health is a vital part of our health and well-being. It has been defined by the WHO as a state of well-being where someone can recognize their abilities, handle normal life stress, work productively, and contribute to their community. It was included for the first time in 2015 as part of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And one of the goals of WHO's Mental Health Action Plan is to decrease stigma and discrimination by educating the public through mental health awareness campaigns. And one of the ways to do that is through art-based knowledge translation. I will talk a little bit about my related literature, which covers intersecting domains, such as the knowledge translation of lived experiences of depression and anxiety through arts co-creation, video games about depression and anxiety, including how they are represented. And I will also talk about participatory methods that has been used to develop video games, such as participatory action research and game jams. So traditionally, research findings are published and disseminated in academic journals. However, they often do not reach their intended audience, and there is a knowledge gap between research and practice. So knowledge translation has an increased interest in the field of mental health because it provides broader perspectives from a wider range of participants and values their experiential knowledge. One of the examples is the Big Anxiety Festival, which is a citizen art science project that then engages with the public about mental health. It focused on the diverse experiences of mental health, such as what makes us anxious as individuals, our concerns about the future, and our sense of belonging, and how people are cared for. Another example is the art-based knowledge translation lab at the Black Dog Institute. One of their projects portrayed the first episode of Psychosis through dance, and it was presented to high school students to promote dialogue about the subject. Another example is digital storytelling, which is a participatory videography project with, for, and by Canadian Aboriginal youth about their experiences with digital media and its role on mental well-being. The researchers organized talking circles to encourage their participants to share their stories. They also conducted filmmaking workshops that taught their participants the technical and creative aspects of filmmaking, which included digital storytelling and storyboarding. And as their participants developed their film, they emphasized the importance of the process of making the film, which is why they included deliberate reflection sections to really have their participants reflect and share their progress. And they've also conducted interviews with their participants about their experience. And this, their feedback was used to continually adjust their project. Which leads me to my first research question. So I have chosen video games as my medium for knowledge translation and artistic self-expression. My first research question is, how can video game be used as a knowledge translation framework to support young people with lived experience of depression and anxiety?
I have chosen video games because it's an increasingly popular form of media. It's actually replacing TV and other media forms for many young people. And they can inspire players to gain a more insightful understanding of the experiences of others. And it's multidisciplinary. It covers code, art, design, writing, and music, which provides multiple platforms for people with lived experience to tell their stories, such as through the narrative or through game mechanics. And it has positive effects on their players. It gives them an opportunity to learn problem solving skills and enhance their creativity, and it can also improve their mood and trigger positive emotional experiences. And it also promotes pro-social behaviors. And it is for these reasons that Granick and her colleagues propose that video games have immense potential in the field of mental health. Video games about depression and anxiety have been tackled in different forms. The first is serious games, which are games that have an educational purpose. Actually, a majority of existing research about video games about depression and anxiety are actually serious games for therapeutic purposes and for increasing mental health literacy. Another type is deep games, which are games that are designed with meaning and purpose, and they tackle human experiences through gameplay. As well as empathy games, which are games that hope to inspire players to walk a mile in someone else's shoes. And in recent years, there have been an emergence of deeply personal video games about the game developers' experiences of mental illness. Sandra Danilovic's PhD research is called autobiographical games, which are games that explore the game developers' autobiographical experiences of illness as a form of self-care, understanding, and therapy. And for her PhD, she conducted a game jam, which is an event where game developers created video games based on their personal experiences. For her research, her participants worked on their own, which suggests that they had all the skills required to make a video game, which includes design, code, and art. And as her focus is on game development as a form of therapy for the developers themselves, the games were not released to the public. The multidisciplinary nature of video game development allows the experiential knowledge from people with lived experiences to be translated through different platforms, such as narrative and game mechanics. And there are also different game design approaches that game developers have taken to represent depression and anxiety in video games. The first one is narrative game design, which uses the literal approach through its narrative writing. For example, for Moving Stories, it's a video game used to deliver a school-based mental health literacy program. Their developers chose to use a video game because it provides a safe space for their players to learn by doing. And the aim of the game is for the player to help Lisa, who is suffering from depression. While empathy games are often developed as a form of artistic self-expression. For example, Depression Quest, it's a narrative-driven interactive story where the player places someone who is suffering from depression as they go through their everyday life. And they want to represent the helplessness that people feel during depression. So while the player is presented with story passages and choices that can influence the character's life, since depression is debilitating, some of the choices, as you can see in the photo, is disabled. And the next one is through metaphorical game design, which uses game mechanics to portray metaphors. Metaphors can portray not just the symptoms, but the inside view of what depression feels like. Doris Rush introduced a metaphor archaeology method, which analyzes interview transcripts to find traces of structural metaphors. One of her projects is called For the Records, and it's a transmedia project about mental illness, which included video games. And one of the games is called Fluctuation, which is about bipolar disorder. So for this project, they interviewed someone suffering from bipolar disorder. And during the interview, they described mania as intoxication of operating at great heights. And they described depression as a jagged descent. And that informed the game's structural metaphor, wherein up represents mania and down represents depression. So in the game, the player jumps out platforms in the depression stage, and they suddenly fall they jump up platforms in the mania stage and they suddenly fall in the depression stage. And the last one is experiential game design, which let players feel anxiety by triggering authentic feelings of fear. And they use different biofeedback technologies to measure the player's physiology. For example, MindLight measures the player's brain activity. And the connection between the player's physiological state and its direct impact in the game has potential to create a deeply personal experience. Game developers have also adopted different participatory design methods to collaborate and get feedback from lay participants with lived experience during the development of their games. So for example, for moving stories, the researchers, they began with an initial game idea, which was informed by existing studies and best clinical practices. Then they collaborated with young people, researchers, therapists, teachers, and game developers to prototype and test their game in pilot studies. And this was done iteratively. While for the records, they adapted a participatory design methodology to co-create their video games with their subject matter experts. So for the pre-production of their project, the researchers and game developers, they conducted in-depth face-to-face interviews with their subject matter experts to get to know their lived experience. They then conducted brainstorming sessions and analyzed the interview transcript using Doris Rush's metaphor archaeology method. And while the game developers oversaw the game design and development, they were informed by feedback from their subject matter experts. So compared to the process of moving stories, For the Records engages with people with lived experience from the very beginning of their research and involved them in more stages of the process. And importantly, their subject matter experts have the final say of how they are portrayed in the game. Participatory action research is also one of the methodology that has been used to develop video games. It's a user-centered approach where the participants are the real experts of their experience. The advantages of this approach is the researchers work with their participants in all phases of the research, from design to execution to dissemination. And there is a balance of power dynamics between the researchers and participants. While traditional research may include some participants who may not feel equipped enough to express their experiences through academic writing, for participatory action research, the researchers may be required to go beyond conventional methods, such as exploring arts-based knowledge translation strategies and game jams. So game jams have been adopted as a participatory design method by researchers to explore solutions to real-world problems. They are events that promote the participation of multidisciplinary teams to co-create games based on a given theme from start to finish. They are fast-paced events that occur in a short amount of time, ranging from 48 hours to a month in physical locations or online. And they promote community building through the shared experience of being at the same location and a mutual interest in game development. And they often occur in 3 phases. The first phase is the pre-jam phase, where the participants form their teams. Some of the game jam organizers would facilitate this team formation to ensure that there is an equal distribution of skills and interests in each team. And they begin with the ideation phase. Ho and his colleagues actually studied the different ideation methods that game developers have used, and which includes IDEO's design thinking. And after that, they get to develop their games. And game development involves code, art, writing, and music. And there's actually so much more, like production and sound effects. And finally, in the post-jam phase, the game is released, and this is a good opportunity for the participants to get feedback on their games. One of the research projects that applied participatory action research to conduct game jams is breeding games. So their participants were game developers, researchers, and clinicians, and they developed game prototypes about respiratory illness. While they explored a different domain, how they applied PAR to their game jam facilitation process can still inform my research. For breeding games, their game jam took place over 2 to 4 days in physical locations that are inclusive and accessible. Before the game jams, the researchers gathered information from their subject matter experts about respiratory illness, and they relayed this information at the start of the game jam to their participants. Their participants then brainstorm in groups and share their ideas. And as their participants develop their games, they also encourage their participants to share their progress. And they also encourage them to write blog posts and game design documents. And this is also an iterative process. So for my project, Mental Jam, I'll just begin with a little bit of background about me. So my creative practice history. I'm a game developer. While primarily I'm a programmer, I've also have experience in game design, production, and art. So I've worked for the past 10 years as a game developer in the Philippines and Taiwan, and I have contributed to multiple commercial games. And I'm also a women in games and Unity student ambassador, so I teach kids how to code video games. And one of the projects that I made for my master's practice is called Depression Simulator, which is a point-and-click puzzle game that simulates the lives of someone suffering from depression. And so for this game, I wanted to represent more points of view about depression. So I used the website called Hit Record to solicit contributions in the form of stories, images, and even music, which I incorporated into the game. In my spare time, I also join game jams. And I really like game jams because they encourage collaboration, experimentation, and it allows me to learn new skills. Which leads me to my second research question, which is how can participatory action research be used to develop video games about depression and anxiety? For my methodology, I will adopt Edmund and Candy's practitioner research model. I like this research model because it's an iterative process where research happens alongside practice, and theory is executed through the creation of works, which is kind of similar to my background. And game jams are a little bit like studio as a laboratory because it's an experimental space where people from different disciplines collaborate to develop video games. And I will use qualitative methods to explore the lived experience of depression and anxiety because it can evoke empathy and resonate with the audience in a more meaningful way compared to quantitative methods. And I will use participatory action research to conduct game jams. And the research will have two key outputs, which is a knowledge translation tool for the lived experience of depression and anxiety through game design, and a model for participating in game jam workshops that will foster video game co-creation for young people with lived experience. For my methods, I will begin with an interview with young people with lived experience of depression and anxiety. This will be one-on-one, semi-structured interviews where participants will be invited to give an uninterrupted account of their experience. I may also ask a few follow-up questions to clarify things and ask for more information. The interviews will be transcribed and de-identified, and they will also have an opportunity to member check their transcripts. And to maintain their anonymity, they will also be given a pseudonym. I will then analyze these interviews using thematic analysis to identify recurring themes. Then, during the game jam workshops, I will present the thematic analysis report to my participants, and this will be the knowledge that they will translate into video games. And my participants will ideate in groups guided by design thinking. I will organize 3 game jams, each one focusing on a different game design strategy. The first one will be narrative game design, and it will be an online game jam. The second one would be focused on metaphorical game design, and it will be face-to-face. And the third one will be about experiential game design, and it will be a hybrid. And I will also moderate group formation to make sure that there is a balance of skills in each group. And I will be embedded in each team as a researcher, and I will provide game design and programming guidance as needed. And My participants do not need to have a background in game development because making games can be entertaining even for newcomers, and game development is multidisciplinary. So my participants can contribute in different ways. If they're interested in writing, they can contribute to the narrative of the game. If they're a musician, they can contribute to the music. And then I will also organize workshops to teach participants game development skills. And finally, they will develop the games in groups. And I will emphasize that the development process is as important as the game itself. So I will encourage them to document and share their game development process using blog posts. And in order to evaluate my game and my research, my third research question is, how useful is participatory action research in the process of developing video games about depression and anxiety? In order to do that, I will conduct interviews at the end of each Game Jam workshop. And they will be semi-structured interviews, and they have three purposes. One, to evaluate the Game Jam workshop facilitation process. Another one is to evaluate the participation outcomes of Game Jam workshops. And finally, to evaluate their game development process. I will focus on how knowledge from the thematic analysis reports and the lived experiences of depression and anxiety are actually translated into video games. And these interviews will also be video recorded, transcribed, and evaluated using thematic analysis. And a little bit about my research project progress since beginning my PhD. Aside from working on my confirmation candidature document, doing related literature, I've also participated in quite a few game jams, and I developed games about mental health. So they're kind of like my experiments. So one of this is for Global Game Jam. It's a physical game jam that occurred over 48 hours actually in South Melbourne, and people actually stay over. And I was one of the volunteer staffs, and the theme for this year is repair. And I developed this game called Kintsugi, which is a puzzle game that's based on the traditional Japanese art of repairing ceramics and gold. It also embodies the concept of wabi-sabi that embraces damage and imperfection. And like the word that has been used all year, resilience. And another game that I've developed is for Games Aid's Mental Health Jam. And it's a week-long game jam, and it's an online game jam. And their theme is just mental health. For this game jam, I wanted to explore depression using a metaphor. And I chose the metaphor of drowning. The player can sink, but they can also swim. And if you look closely, I actually based the character on myself. And this is my research schedule. So since my project follows Edmund and Kendi's practitioner research model and participatory action research, I will run 3 game jam workshops. And as you can see, they're in loops because they're iterative. And I will conduct them I scheduled them in line with World Mental Health Day in October and Mental Health Awareness Month in May. And I will also write papers and submit talks to journals and relevant academic conferences. And here are some of the requested guidance and feedback. I'd like to have some advice on how to run workshops as part of research, as well as advice on how to be embedded in a participatory action research team as a researcher, and how to balance power dynamics to ensure that my participants' voices are heard and reflected properly in the final output.
Good morning, everyone. So I finished my presentation yesterday, and I got really good feedback and comments from my supervisors and panelists, and I got a really lovely email this morning. I'll flip my camera around to show you. There we go. So it says, "Dear Michelle, I'm pleased to say that the panel has confirmed and unanimously agreed that the recommendation is that your milestone has been achieved. Congratulations." And it actually has confetti effects. Confetti! So, as of now, I think I'm officially a PhD candidate. Yeah. So I'm really excited. I'm probably gonna make more vlogs now that I'm. Well, I mean, PhD is a journey, so there are ups and downs. So I'm gonna make, I don't know, like more vlogs about how it goes, and we will try to answer that in our video. So please like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.